Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Winter is a slow time in the garden, so we figured we could answer some viewer questions. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joellen Dimond. Joellen is our local horticulturist. We have Celeste Scott. Celeste Scott is a UT Extension horticulture specialist, and Mr. D is here. Mr. D is a retired UT Extension agent. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Always fun to come.
This is fun, right?
Question
This is
answer.
fun. This is fun.
Yes.
Excellent questions,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Here's our
lots.
first viewer email. What tree is this? It blooms in the spring with lilac-colored flowers. Then it forms large, dark brown or black pods. And this is Ed. So what is that, Celeste?
Okay, so this was really fun. Again,
Okay.
I had to research this just like we had to do some research earlier. When I saw the picture of the bloom initially, my brain and Joellen's too went to catalpa, right? The catalpa tree. It has that signature trumpet-shaped lavender bloom with the long pods. But then when I saw the leaves, it didn't match. That leaf structure didn't match. So this particular plant has a really unique palmately lobed leaf, a 5-lobed leaf. And so I just had to dive in and do a little researching, keyed that out, and first I found that it belongs to the Bignoniaceae family, right? So when you're using a key, it just kind of helps you narrow things down. And so once I got into the right family, things really started coming together because catalpa trees are in that same family. Our trumpet vine, we have a native trumpet vine, is in that same family. Those blooms look really similar. I felt like we were on the right track. And finally ended up at a plant. The common name is lavender trumpet tree or Androanthus impetigineusis. That's a long one. Yeah. So I'm not sure where this question was sent in from, but that particular plant is only hardy to about 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is not something that's going to be growing as a perennial tree in the southeastern region. So if maybe they're in a warmer growing area, but I am, without further investigation and having the leaf right in front of me, I'm about 98% sure that that's where we've landed. Yeah. Androanthus or lavender trumpet tree. And it is related to plants we're more familiar with. Yeah.
That is real good. Keyed it out.
It was so
Dichotomous
fun.
keys.
Yes.
They actually do work.
They
right?
do work.
They do.
Yeah, they actually just step by step. You get to what you need, right? Because we had several thoughts about that. Just looking at the leaf, arrangement itself, but there you have it. So you can use those keys.
You sure can.
All right, thank you for that question, Mr. Ed. Thank you. So that was good. All right, here's our next via email. My gooseberry plant is sending out tons of suckers. How do I control them? They are trying to take over. And this is Olaf from Stevensonville, Ontario, Canada. So what do you think about that, Mr. D?
I think I had to contact the Ontario Ministry of Food and Agriculture, which I guess is their Department of Ag. I did a little research on gooseberries because I don't have any personal experience with them. And I found that is not that uncommon problem. You got a couple of options. You can try to establish a sod and then mow under your gooseberries. And so the mowing would take care of any suckers that come up. However, the sod, and creeping red fescue is the sod that is recommended, that they recommend for up there, and we do grow a little bit of that up around here. But that will reduce the yields of your gooseberry plant because by about 30%, because the sod is competing with the gooseberries for the water and nutrients. So that's a trade-off there. Another option is to cultivate. And if you cultivate around your gooseberries, you're going to take out your suckers and also increase, 30% yield over the sod production. So those are the only two options, mechanical removal and if you establish the sod and mowing, that is a combination of mechanical removal.
That is interesting.
Mulching might help suppress a little bit, but the suckers are going to come on up through the mulch.
Right. So here's the secondary question. Can I transplant the suckers?
That depends.
Depends, okay.
The most common way of propagating gooseberries is by layering. So I did a little research and I found that is not the only way of propagation. There's a couple of rootstocks commonly used for gooseberries, so sometimes they're grafted. If your gooseberry plants were propagated by layering, then it's fine to move use the suckers and move them. If they were grafted, if you use the suckers, you're going to have either Jostaberry or Ottawa 3 rootstocks going to come up. So you need to know whether or not your plants have been propagated by layering or were they purchased. And even the purchased ones, many of them are propagated by layering. But if your plants were propagated by grafting on the rootstock, then you don't need to transplant those suckers. Layering is easy to be on the safe side. I'd go with layering if you want to make sure you get the variety that you want.
Just take one of those branches, put it down to the ground, put some soil over it, put a brick on top of it, and it will root.
Get her done in about one season.
In
one season, you cut it loose from the mother plant and
you got one.
Put it where you want.
Right.
Olaf, research. That's good, Mr. D. That is good. Appreciate that. Appreciate that question too. We learn so much, don't we?
Yes.
So good.
So much.
All right, here's our next via email. What is happening to my Schefflera? I have kept it in the same place for 2 years, but recently a few leaves turned brown and fell off. Now some of the green leaves fall off at the slightest tap. I repotted it a few weeks ago, but it has not stopped the problem. The roots looked healthy. Some new leaves have come on, but they're pointed down. What is going on?
Okay.
So what do you think, Celeste?
Well, I'm going to say that was an excellent description.
Yeah.
Thank you, question submitter. So Scheffleras they're just so finicky. They do not like to be disturbed once they have found a place and they are thriving in your home landscape indoors. We really just kind of want to leave them there. And so this is a common problem, I guess, what I'm trying to get at with the leaves falling. Any change in the growing environment can cause Schefflera to just want to shed leaves for no apparent reason, even if it's not detrimental per se to the plant's overall health. If you've shifted it from one window to another window, maybe that new light would actually be better for that plant, but it has trouble adjusting to these, anything new in the environment. So some things that came to my mind that may be causing this initial leaf drop that he was experiencing is just any kind of change. So are they moving into a new season, right? Is it colder outside and maybe being exposed to cold drafts from an exterior door being opened? Is it or were they moving into a warm season and now it's getting drafts from air conditioner vents, right, blowing on it that it wasn't at first used to having? So even these minor changes like this can cause or trigger leaf drop in those plants. I admire that he, took initiative to try to repot it, thinking maybe it's root bound, maybe we need to do some things. And I'm glad that the roots looked healthy. Yeah. After he got it repotted, it continued to drop leaves. Again, this is something that I would expect. Right. The plant was already shedding leaves, disturbing that root zone, repotting it just adds to the stress of that plant, the change of growing environment. So the continuation of dropping leaves is fine. But I do want to give him hope to know that since he is seeing that new growth coming out, and since the roots looked healthy,
and they're healthy. Right.
I think the plant itself is fine. Okay, so this is just all circumstantial. Just be patient. Let that new growth push out. Usually as long as the plant is healthy, in 2 to 3 weeks, we're gonna see new growth. And on those palmately lobe type leaves, it's natural for when they unfurl to kind of be pointing downwards. So, don't let that alarm you. As they mature, they'll open and hold themselves more widely, kind of like the umbrella plant that we're used to seeing them as. So, I can't say for sure exactly what caused the start of the leaf drop, but it was probably just a change in that environment, whatever that small change may have been.
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of things there, right? Yeah. It could be humidity, could be something else too as well.
Yes, humidity. Yeah. Or you had mentioned watering frequency.
It looked like it was really wet, and if he's repotted it, he might think, oh, I need to water it more, and maybe it doesn't need as much water like he was watering it before. So just watch the watering, make sure that the soil was at the same level the other soil was, and just a few little changes.
Yes, that could be another cause for initiation of the leaf drop. Say it's used to being watered regularly on a regular basis, having that consistent moisture, then you leave for vacation for a week and you think, oh, it's gonna make it 10 days while I'm gone. It can even tell, with that amount of change. So just keeping things real steady and even.
Steady and even, I like it. So thank you for that question.
Because you didn't take it on vacation.
Oh, okay. I didn't take it with me.
Hurt his feelings.
You get to go to the beach.
All right, yeah, so appreciate that. That was good. All right, here's our next via email. Why are the flowers on my Chinese snowball green? And this is Joellen, and this is Joellen. So what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, I have the same problem with mine.
how about that?
Yes,
How about that?
but you know
Is
what?
it a problem?
They start out green, and then they turn white.
Yeah.
So, and mine is getting more shade now than it used to. So they're smaller, and they're taking longer to turn white because they don't have as much sunlight.
Right.
So I think that is the issue she's having, is not enough sunlight. And I have the same problem. But I know it eventually does turn white.
Yeah, so it eventually get there.
Yeah,
They'll
it eventually
mature
does.
and becomes white.
Yeah.
All right. You think about that?
Nope, I just like them in all forms. I'll harvest them and bring them inside and use them for arrangements in their tight green clustered form, and then I'll use them too when they've popped out into their snowball form as well.
Yep.
So it's good to know.
It's
Same
good to know.
issue, right?
Same issue.
She's not alone in that.
No,
You're
she's
not alone. You sure this is not your question? No. It's Joellen. Thank you so much for the question. Appreciate that. Here's our next via email. Why did my mangoes rot and split on the tree? It has happened 2 years in a row. How do I fix it? And this is Ann from South Florida. So how does Miss Ann fix it, Joelle?
Well, mangoes like to be watered more consistently when they're young. But once they get older, 3-4 years old, they don't like a lot of care.
Okay.
And so
That's my kind of plan.
And so I'm thinking that maybe it was so droughty there, and just so dry and hot. She thought maybe it needed more water and maybe watered it inconsistently. Maybe she watered it a lot, didn't water it a lot, but because the fruit is splitting, makes me think that there was too much water at one time. That it got a flush of growth, and that's like tomatoes. Tomatoes will do that too. When they're ripening and they've had a lot of water suddenly in their system. So I think consistent watering is the issue, and just remember that mangoes prefer to be on the dry side, and they don't like a whole lot of wet around them on a regular basis. They like to let it, they like to be kind of natural and more dry situation. But there isn't a publication, and we may have that on the website, about growing mangoes for homeowners in the landscape. And he can read over that and see if he's following the recommendations there, and see if he has any better luck with his mangoes.
We sure hope so. All right, so Ms. Ann, we thank you for the picture. Thank you for the question. All right, here's our next via email. Around town this year, I've seen many Arborvitae trees brown and die. They are often near another one that still looks healthy. What is going on? We've received this question several times recently from several people here in this area, Memphis, Tennessee.
Yes.
Yep. And we've had numerous calls at the office.
Yes.
Same question.
Same question.
That's what they're supposed to do.
Same,
Call
that's
their
what they're supposed to do.
local county agent.
That's what they're supposed to do. Right.
Yeah.
So they're listening.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you think, Joelle?
Well, I know she says that they were talking about one is dead and then the other one's alive and healthy. But in that picture, the other one looks like it's
saw it
going
too.
to.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
You
it's
sit
on
down
its
at the
way
bottom.
out.
Yeah.
It's on its way out. And we had a really wet spring. Then we had a really dry the end of the summer.
A drought.
And then we were in a drought condition here. And I think that kind of thing is what is causing the problems with the Arborvitae, because Arborvitae prefers consistent moisture in their ground around them. And if there's out in the middle of like a subdivision or someplace that's not near an irrigation system or not part of an area that you would actually water, and just out there, I can see in the environment really affecting the health of these plants. And the other thing you might think of is they may have had an infestation of bagworms and they didn't even know it.
Yes.
Bagworms,
Because
spider mites.
there's all sorts of plants. I mean, bugs that attack Arborvitae. So, you know, that's scouting for them is a good idea.
Good point.
Because I had bagworms on mine, and it's easy to, if you scout, you see them. I saw something move in the tree, and I went, wait a minute, those are bagworms. So I got the BT out with the little dial, like the
Hose-in sprayer?
hose-in sprayer. And I took that hose-in sprayer and I put BT all up in there, took care of them.
Yeah.
No problem.
I'll add that I received pictures and phone calls from lots of agents who were going on site visits, right, from homeowners who are having these same issues and giving them tips on what to look for. And in a lot of those instances, they were able to discover cankers on the inside canopies of those trees, on the limbs, even on the main trunks. So lots of vertical cracking on those trunks. We saw lots of oozing. I always encourage people, use all your senses. If you just take a big deep breath, and you smell that evergreen scent, you know what I'm talking about? You need to investigate further and get it to the inside of the canopy of that tree. So saw a lot of canker development, and generally the cankers may have been there already but weren't causing a lot of damage, but then when we had the drought stress, like you mentioned, that further brought that problem to the surface and just really did that plant in. So maybe it wasn't, you're like, well, yeah, it was a drought, but I mean, we've had more severe droughts other times, but coupled with the already, you know, existing presence of that canker just kind of proliferated things. So
without a doubt, so it's been a common question, you know, this fall, you know, summer into the fall. And I can tell you, I've been on a couple of sites too. This is also what I saw, right? They were planted too deep.
Oh yes, too deep. So many.
Right, and then of course the mulch was piled up. You know, you had the volcano mulch, right? But I would pull that mulch back, and guess what? I mean, the mulch was essentially decomposing the tree.
Yes.
Right.
Have you even seen where like the limbs themselves were buried? It wasn't just buried up the trunk. It's like whole limbs were buried in the soil.
Too deep.
So I've seen that, you know, too as well. But it's been a common question we've gotten.
Definitely.
Right.
And then one last thing that I'll add, if you're seeing some yellowing on them as we're moving into the fall, but maybe not that drastic browning that we saw in those images, that's when I would for sure go out and check for mites, because we have cool season spider mites that would be active at that time of year. So definitely stay on top of that.
Yeah, so that'll be good. So a lot of things there, right, to consider. But it's been an interesting year.
It has
in the
been
gardening
very
world. It's been an interesting year.
And you know, we've seen them around town too.
Yeah, we definitely
So,
have.
I mean,
that's good.
there are a lot of issues to consider with them.
That's the fun about gardening, right?
Always learning.
Always fun and always learning too as well.
Yeah.
All right, here's our next viewer email. This one's good. What plants can I place on a shady porch or plant near sunny or shady windows that can tolerate Florida heat and emit a nice scent? And this is Bob from Naples, Florida. He says he's a transplant from New England to Florida, and he misses fragrant flowering plants like lilacs.
Yay.
So let me say this, Ms. Bob. Welcome to the South.
Yes, welcome.
Hot, humid. Not exactly New England, you know? Not exactly. So Celeste, can we help Mr. Bob out?
We sure can. We have lots of plants that have plenty of fragrance that I think he's really going to love. So for planting on a porch or, you know, near a shady area like that, I'm going to say gardenia. They're going to have a wonderful aroma,
exactly
and that far down into the south, they're going to be hardy, depending on where you're growing. Like especially here in Zone 7, gardenias can be iffy for me. But I think they're going to do really good for him in that area. Another one that I love that I don't get to appreciate as much as I would like to is tea olive or osmanthus. My goodness, they have a really cool, it's called like false holly is another common name for it. They have really cool leaves. They look super prickly, but they're not. you can get variegation in the leaf, so some with like white and speckles of green, even speckles of pink in there, really beautiful. And then they have insignificant bloom, but the bloom is so fragrant. It's one of the strongest smelling fragrances. So yes, those are more shrub type plants, so they would need larger containers, but I think they would be great for that area. If they want some like smaller scale plants, I was thinking things like lavender and rosemary. Plumeria is another that you see all over Florida that has a really strong fragrance. Butterfly gingers are hardy in that area and also have a really strong aroma to them. That would be something more that you would plant like in the landscape than in a pot. And we could go on. I had options for vines and trees.
I was going to say, I was thinking Confederate jasmine.
Yes, that was on the list.
And Carolina allspice also.
Yes.
Well.
Oh, I love that. And even the leaves are aromatic when they're crushed.
Yeah.
So lots of options.
Lots of options.
Definitely lots of options.
Lots of good options. Yeah, Mr. Bob, sounds like they want to join you down in Florida.
Yes,
how about that?
please.
Yeah, we're going to help you out. So appreciate that question. And again, Florida. Yeah, not New England.
More options than he had in New England.
Yeah, more options than he had in New England, though. That's right. That's right, for sure. Here's our next via email. How can I attract butterflies to my yard? And this is Constance from Cleveland, Ohio. She says she has lots of bees, but no butterflies. So how can we help her, Joel?
Oh, we had our butterfly garden out here.
Yes, we did.
And there's a lot of things, but one thing that is consistent that she needs that butterflies love is a flower that has a flat surface. They are attracted to, of all things, purple. That's their number one thing that they're attracted to. Yellow, orange, and reds. So purple, yellow, orange, and red flowers that are flat. And let's see, what first annual that I can think of is zinnias. Zinnias are great for that. They like heliotrope. That's an annual. Dahlias, anything that's large, the flat. Ageratum, sunflowers. For perennials, you've got Gaillardia, Joe Pye, yarrows. You also have some Maximilian sunflowers that are perennial too. But so there's a lot of plants. And think about a lot of those are the purples, the yellows, the oranges, and the reds. And they're flat surfaces I think they like something to land on, so they, they're bigger than the bees, so they like something to land on to be able to.
So they don't have to hover while they feed.
Yes.
They need a spot to.
Yeah, they need a spot to land.
Yeah. I love that, and I love butterflies as well. And another that I would have to add would be Asclepias. They love the butterfly milkweed. Oh, they just love it. So if you're looking for a pretty orange perennial to add to the list, that's definitely one of my favorites. Another thing that came to my mind is if we want to have a really healthy population of butterflies, we need to make sure that we're providing host plants for those butterfly species as well. A lot of them have really specific genuses of plants that they need to lay their eggs on or near so that their larvae have something to feed on.
Milkweed serves one of those purposes.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, out in the garden, we planted parsley and dill.
For your swallowtails.
So and so those are some other, and you have to research. Depending on what kind of butterfly you were trying to attract, it'll have a different co-host plant.
Yeah. Just some things that came to my mind. We want to provide nectar, but we also want to make sure that we've got a good supply of host plants if we really want to build a good, diverse population of butterflies, for sure.
I would definitely agree with that.
But you don't want tomatoes to be your host plant. You're trying to grow homegrown tomatoes.
Not tomatoes. All right, and then those plants that you all named, those plants, will they grow in Cleveland, Ohio?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. So here's something I would like to mention though. I would keep pesticides away from that area.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yes. So full sun. Yeah, you want to encourage the butterflies to come, but stay away from the pesticides in those areas. I think you can attract more butterflies that way.
Definitely. Right? Yeah. And a lot of those plants that Joellen mentioned also attract other beneficial, like predaceous insects. If we can bolster those populations, we're going to have more natural pest control, thus less need, hopefully, for some insecticide use.
I would agree.
Don't they need a little water source?
Yes, they do.
Hey, Joelle, tell them about what you did.
Well, out in the garden, we did. We had, we put, actually, They like a place to rest, and so we put stones out, and then we buried a saucer that we put sand in, and then we put water in the sand so that they would have a place to get some minerals from and rest. And that completes all the things that they need, you know, in the area for food, host plants, water, nectar, you know, minerals, place to rest.
I love that pollinator puddler concept. I've seen butterflies out in the wild just sipping water in muddy puddles. I know everybody's seen that, and that's what they're doing. They're drinking those minerals through that muddy water. So that is really a necessity for them.
Yeah, they can do that. Yeah. For me, it's just a day at the beach is what I call it, right? All right. So there you go, Constance. We appreciate that question. Hope that helps you out. A lot of good information there. So fun as always, y'all.
Very
You
much
learned so
so.
much. Fun as always. So Joellen, thank you. Celeste, thank you. Mr. D, thank you for being here.
Thanks for
All right.
asking us.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. We hope you got some useful information for your garden. Remember, if you have any questions that are stumping you, ask us at familyplotgarden.com. Just click Contact Us at the top. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. Thank you. Be safe.